Deep within the ruins of an age long forgotten, the party descends into silence. The air is heavy and thick with magic and the faint scent of decay. And then a voice, smooth, melodic, and impossibly calm, pierces their brains. "Why do you trespass on my domain?" The words slither through their minds like serpents in the dark. From the shadows, coils unwind and scales shimmer with an unnatural gleam. Eyes bright with cruel intelligence pierce through the gloom. This is no simple beast. Once immortal scholar, priest, or sorcerer, now immortal guardians or twisted tyrant. They remember everything, every insult, every trespass, and every soul they've consumed. And once you enter their domain, the chance of survival comes near impossible. Yes, in today's video, we are talking about the crazed serpents of old, the Naga. Hello and welcome to Dungeon Deep Dive, where we talk about all things D&D monsters, from monsters and their lore to their publication history, where they originated, and how you can use them in your D&D games. Before we start into this 13-page script that I've got sitting in front of me at 7 o'clock in the morning, be sure to drop the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. The likes and subscribe for the algorithm help on each video a lot more than you think. So I'd appreciate it, thank you. These serpentine creatures are entities of great intelligence and have a natural mastery of sorcery and magic. These monstrosities have an immaculate resemblance to giant snakes with heads of humans. These guys can come in all shapes and sizes, and they appear in a range of 10 feet all the way up to 20 feet in length. And some have been rumored that they have seen Nagas as long as 100 feet. And they can weigh up to 200 to 500 pounds. As well as their razor sharp fangs, they have an ability to coil and crush their targets. And they also have a natural ability for spell casting born into their very existence. Even though you can encounter Nagas with both male and female visages, they are actually classed as hermaphrodite species. The Naga can, if it so chooses, to reproduce with other Nagas, but if it doesn't feel like knocking boots with other Nagas, it could simply knock its own boots and impregnate itself. I feel like the more I think about the concept of that, the creepier it kind of becomes. Like I said, this is down to purely personal preference for each Naga, and neither method will provide any advantage to producing young. Because of the flexibility their species has in regards to reproduction, the concept of mates held far less importance among other Nagas compared to other creatures. And given their snake-like heritage, obviously as you can tell, these little nasties prefer hotter climates over colder climates. Now going back to the creation of the very first Naga, they were originally created by the Saruka, which are a progenitor race in the very early days of D&D. Upon their creation, they instantly became slaves to the Saruka, serving them as guards, researchers of magic, and explorers to scout uncharted lands. There are a bunch of subspecies of the Naga throughout all of D&D, but the very first to ever be created was the Water Naga, which were bred specifically for exploring vast lands and oceans. In total, there are about 11 different subspecies of Naga that we are going to go through today. There is the Dark Naga, which is a variety of the Naga that looks like a large purple snake or eel, with a barbed stinger at the end of the tail and a human face. We get the Guardian Naga, which are immortal beings that often protect treasure, magical secrets, items, and lore that would be destructive if they fell into the wrong hands. Opposite to the other Naga, we have the Iridescent Naga, which are largely peaceful species of the Naga that spend their lives wandering the world seeking hidden beauty and new discoveries. We then see the Spirit Naga, which are classed as the most powerful of all the species, being akin to witches among the other Nagas. We then have the first Naga that ever was created that loves solitude and isolation, the Water Naga. We then get the Banelaw Naga, which are large, pure evil, colossal beings, immortal, spell-wielding Nagas. Next we have the Bright Naga, which are white, gold-scaled Nagas that are kind of considered the runt of the subspecies. We then get the badass Primordial Naga, but also known as the Fire Naga, and are a form of Naga that is said to have spawned from the elemental plane of chaos. Next we have the Ha Naga, which are gargantuan variants of the Naga known to grow to the size of 100 feet in length. We then get the Naga Hydra, which is similar to a normal Naga, but instead of one head, it has 6. And finally, even though they are technically minions and not an actual species, we have the Bone Naga, which are an undead variant usually only created by necromancers and dark entities as guardians. Now, even though they are monstrosities, they do still follow some sort of religion. All of the Nagas used to follow an entity known as the World Serpent, which was a primordial being that at a point in time in the world of D&D ended up fragmenting into an abundance of fragments of itself. After the world serpent's fragmentation, most Nagas moved their worship over to a goddess that fragmented from the world serpent called Shekinista. But the Banelore Nagas have been known to worship the evil god Bane or Cyric. The Naga made its first appearance in the 1975 official newsletter of the TSR games, the Strategic Review number 3. And we get the 3 variants of Naga in the newsletter. We get the Guardian, the Water, and the Spirit Naga. It says the Guardian Naga is found in sacred places guarding treasures of lawful minions. They range from 15 to 20 feet in length and can spit poison, bite, and constrict. In addition, they are able to use cleric spells as if they were a bishop, and I'm assuming a bishop is the same as the cleric class. Let me know in the comments below. I've never played first edition, so I have no idea. The Water Naga is known as the most numerous of all the Nagas and are particular in what water they live in. And they only call fresh water their home, choosing to live in palaces deep beneath the surface of large ponds or lakes. It also says that they can use magic as if they are a thaumaturgist, although they cannot cast spells which cast fire or lightning. And we have the Spirit Naga, which says that the Spirit Nagas are total evil and have an extremely poisonous bite. Apparently they have an ability to permanently charm anyone who its gaze hits unless they save versus paralyzation is made. We also get a reprint of these 3 Nagas in the 1976 supplement for Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. Now getting into first edition, we get the same 3 Nagas as before in the 1977 Monster Manual. In this manual, Guardian Nagas are classed as wise and good, and are found particularly in sacred places, guarding treasures of lawful good minions or watchers over some evil. It also mentions that their poisonous spittle that they spit is so potent that if the victim fails a saving throw against the poison, the spittle will kill them. On the other end of the spectrum, the Spirit Naga seek to do harm whenever and wherever possible, and they prefer dwelling in ruined, dismal, and subterranean places. They are described as black-scaled with crimson bands, and their heads are bulbous and have a very human appearance, even to coloration and hair. And finally, the Water Nagas are described as curious but quite neutral in attitude. They usually disdain using violence unless threatened or attacked first. They are described as emerald green to turquoise in a reticulated pattern with chocolate brown and pale jade green or dark grey and olive. Their eyes are pale green to bright amber. We then get the Dark Naga in the creature catalogue in the 1984 Dragon Magazine number 89. Where it says Dark Nagas are fey creatures who further the ends of evil on the prime material plane and live in dark caverns and ruins. They have been known to work with other creatures for mutual gains and naturally can cast spells as a level 6 magic user. They can only use spoken magic and are always eager to acquire new spells from any means necessary. Dark Nagas do have an ability where over time they can convert spells that normally require material components or somatic components and turn them into spells where only verbal is required. They are unable to read or use magical spells / books, but they will still hoard them to keep them in their lair purely for negotiation and trade purposes. When fighting a Dark Naga, they may use spells in the same round of attack with physical attacks with its poisonous stinger at the end of its tail. Now moving over to 2nd edition, we get the Spirit, Guardian, and Water Naga in the 1989 Monstrous Compendium Volume 2. It describes them as highly intelligent and very prominent in magical practice. They are described as cold-blooded with glittering scales and have lidless eyes that are bright and wide. When resting, they are semi-aware of their surroundings, especially in their lair that makes them extremely hard to surprise attack. They will occasionally make a small pouch that they hold under their chin to carry their possessions. And both the Guardian and Spirit Naga have very distinctive smells that pervades their lair and nearby areas. All Nagas across the spectrum are very fond of setting up traps to snare any trespassers invading their lairs. Since they are very limited with physical attacks, their primary form of attack is their list of spells that they can cast. In the 2nd edition, it says that they live solitary lives hunting and foraging over an area usually about a quarter of a mile square. They favor dwelling in deep holes, but sometimes are found curled up in ruins or in a darkened room. If a party decides to invade a lair of a Naga, there is a 10% chance that the lair will hold a Naga and also one or more mate of the Naga. Mates of dominant Nagas are not permanent though. As soon as a Naga becomes pregnant, they will then leave their lair and hide and abandon the eggs in a secret location. When a baby Naga is born, it will resemble just a regular giant snake, but when the Naga becomes fully grown, it will then grow into its human-like head after a long and painful molting process. While Nagas do not produce trade goods, their lives span many human generations and they keep a detailed oral history, so they are a good resource of information. We get more information on the Guardian Spirit and Water Naga too. It says that the Guardian is surrounded with a flowery sweet scent, and the Guardian Naga is marked by green gold scales, silvery spines, and flashing gold eyes. This Naga will always warn off and scare trespassers of anything it is guarding rather than attacking first. But if someone does attack and is defeated by the Naga, it does not eat them. Instead, it will bury them. Well, how respectful. I respect that. Spirit Naga is a black and crimson banded Naga who has the most human-like head with a stringy hair and deep brown eyes. And they smell like rotting flesh, which happens to be their preferred food. They are evil and cunning and seek to cause any harm to any creature that passes through their domain, and sets traps in its lair similar to the Guardian, but instead prefer to attack on sight. And finally, the Water Naga is a beautiful Naga that is emerald green to turquoise in reticular patterns with chocolate brown and pale jade or dark grey and olive. And their spines have red spikes that raise like hackles when they are angry, and their eyes are pale green to amber. These Nagas are then later reprinted in the 1993 Monstrous Manual, and the Dark Naga appears in the Anurok supplement in 1991, where they are described as fey creatures who have human-like faces with fanged mouths on leathery snake-like bodies. It says they usually work with evil beings for mutual gain or survival, and Dark Nagas tend to be purplish black with very dark blue in hue. They have crested heads and smooth, almost invisible scales, making them look like gigantic eels more than snakes. Dark Nagas do possess a natural ESP power that is constantly on the go, and unlike other Nagas, it does not have a poisonous bite, but it does have a poisonous stinger at the end of its tail. Their most feared ability, however, is that it can cast spells similar to that of a level 6 wizard. The spells that it uses are primarily verbal, but it does have the ability to create some of its own spells through back-to-back experimentation. Dark Nagas are immune to acid, venoms, and poisons, and some have been known to swallow poison and hold it in their gullets to transport. Because of their ESP abilities, they cannot have their minds read, but they are not immune to the mind-affecting magics like charm spells, sleep, and hold spells. Dark Nagas are very strategic when it comes to their lair. They like to lair in dark caves and ruins and like to make multiple hidden alcoves where they can hide treasures and magical items. They also like to have multiple entrances and exits that both confuse intruders and flank/surprise them. Another little trick they like to have is to have small tunnels just big enough for them to fit to seal off with their bodies to help block in or fight intruders. Dark Nagas tend to be loners, but they can form stable family groups of 2 to 3 on time to time, and they are bisexual and give birth to a squirming mass of many worm-like young, which they prominently abandon to fend for themselves. They willingly don't eat other Nagas, but they will eat just about anything else, both alive or dead. They will, however, eat a few lichens or occasional green plants, but their main diet is meat. Dark Nagas are quick to plunder fallen foes, swallowing items, scrolls, and spellbooks to store away later on, because the Dark Naga has a bag-like internal organ that they can use to carry things. This organ has thick, rubbery air sac walls to protect the Naga against sharp points, but it also protects the cargo against digestive juices. And it does have an unusual side effect of shielding magic from all detection spells, which is kind of interesting. The Naga and Dark Naga are then reprinted in the Monstrous Compendium Forgotten Realms Appendix 2, as well as the 1993 Forgotten Realms campaign setting and the 1993 Monstrous Manual. The Dark Naga is then further expanded on in the Dragon Magazine number 261, where this magazine goes very in depth on the ecology of the Dark Naga, saying things like how Dark Nagas actually have very limited hearing, and how if they are undisturbed for an amount of time, they can actually go without breathing for a number of months and go into a state of hibernation. Big fans of the Dark Naga in 2nd edition, apparently. Big fans. We do then get the first appearance of the Banelore Naga in the Dragon Magazine 197, but are never actually called Nagas, but are referred to as Naga-like creatures. Named for the many alliances between individuals of this and priests of Bane, Banelore are native to the realms or prime material plane. They are quite independent in nature and not all serve or obey other servants of Bane. Funnily enough, Banelores can wear amulets and magical rings on its tentacles with the usual function maximizing of 2 at a time. Banelores tend to be selfish and solitary, but they often cooperate with lesser creatures such as humans, orcs, and goblins, and sometimes greater beings like beholders, lichers, evil dragons, and even vampires. for common gain or to fight a specific foe. They are paranoid creatures and are always planning against attacks and seeking to strengthen their personal weakness and defenses too to do so. Banelore have been known to steal and tend entire herds of livestock for their own larders, and can dine with perfect safety on snakes and other creatures that generate poison and acids, which Banelores are actually immune to. A Banelore mates whenever it encounters another Banelore and avoids fighting others of its kind. Beyond this, unless weakened or frightened, it avoids consorting with others of its kind. A Banelore parent tends to raise its young in underseas or mountain caves, far from its usual haunts. This is so that when the parent sneaks away and leaves its young, it can return to its favorite areas with little fear of being found. They later appear in the 1994 Monstrous Compendium Annual Volume 1, as well as our first appearance of the Bone Naga in this book, as well as the 1993 The Ruins of Myth Draenor. The Bone Nagas are not naturally made like other Nagas, they are created by dark mages and other Nagas of the necromantic agenda. They do not speak, but they do have limited telepathic abilities which they use to communicate and send their thoughts for others to receive. In battle, the Bone Naga attacks with its long fangs, and if the victim fails a save, then their strength is sapped. In addition to their physical attacks, Bone Nagas can cast one spell per round. They work magic as a level 6 wizard, and these spells are cast by silent force of will and do not require verbal, material, or somatic components. Bone Nagas attack creatures with psionic powers whenever they recognize such abilities, and they cannot be compelled by anyone except their creators to cast spells. Naturally, with them being undead, they do not require food or water or the ability to breathe. If a Bone Naga does tear into a large creature, it will not do so for food, but instead for sport. It feels like 2nd edition was like the prime time for Nagas. But now, moving on to 3rd edition, we get the Dark, Guardian, Spirit, and Water Naga in the 3.0 Monster Manual, where really we don't get any additional information, but we do get some pretty funky art from the Nagas in this book. We then get the Banelore in the Monstrous Compendium Monsters of Faerun, where the art in this book makes me think of some funky type of genie, I have no idea why. We then get the first publication of the Har Naga in 3rd edition in the Epic Level Handbook. And in this book, the Har Naga is described as a colossal Naga lord, often worshipped as a god by spirit Nagas. A Har Naga has no set color, but instead adapts the hues and shades of its scales to match its environment. Much like a chameleon, the head of the Har Naga is that of a classical beautiful woman or a handsome man. The Har Naga's favorite locale for a nest is a former center of society, a temple, a throne room, or even a coliseum. Something I did not expect to read from this was that the Har Naga actually has the ability to fly. Even though they have no wings, it says that they can move through the air similar to a water snake on the surface of water, which is a horrifying sight to imagine. The Har Naga prefers to use spells in combat, resorting to melee only as a last resort. And when it does engage in combat, its swift speed and quick reflexes make it a formidable foe, stinging with its tail or constricting opponents with its body. We then get the Bone Naga in the 2002 Monster Manual 2, where it says a Bone Naga was once a living Dark Naga, and after its death, it was transformed into a skeletal undead creature by another Dark Naga through a horrific ritual. Even though it would despise its servitude, a Bone Naga unswervingly obeys its creator, attacking even other Nagas if it's commanded. Should its master die though, a Bone Naga becomes free-willed and can choose its own destiny. You go, brother. In 3.5 edition, we get the Dark, Guardian, Spirit, and Water Naga in the 3.5 Monster Manual. And in the 2003 Miniatures Handbook, we get the first and I think the only appearance of the Bright Naga. These Nagas live in a labyrinthine lair where when under attack, the Naga would lead the assailants into the labyrinth, appearing, attacking, and disappearing, exhausting them to collapse before dealing the final blow. And finally, in 3.5, we get a new Naga called the Worm Naga. In Dragon Magazine number 130, it is described as a vile, bloated worm that has a thick green body nearly 10 feet long. There's no art for this, but I kind of would like to see any art if anyone can find any. Moving on to 4th edition, we get the only installment of a Naga that is in the 4th edition Monster Manual. And in this book, we get stat blocks for the Guardian, the Bone, the Dark Naga, and the new Primordial Naga. The art for the Primordial Naga is badass. A multi-headed snake engulfed in flames. I mean, what more could you ask for? And finally, in 5th edition, we get the Bone, Guardian, and Spirit Naga in the 5th edition Monster Manual. In 5th edition, it now states that the first Nagas were created as immortal guardians by a humanoid race long lost to history. So they're not even mentioning the Saruks now in 5th edition. When the race died out, the Nagas deemed themselves the rightful inheritors of their master's treasures and magical lore. Whether the Nagas rule their home with an iron fist or compassion, Nagas fully believe that they are the masters of all other creatures that live in their domain. We actually get lore saying that Nagas actually have a long feuded rivalry with the UNT, with each race butting heads over which race is superior. If or however they end up having common goals, they will on occasion set aside their differences to achieve these goals. Now we do get a brief paragraph for each of the Nagas in this book, so I'm just going to read them off for you. For the Bone Naga, it says, in response to a long history of conflict between the UNT and the Nagas, UNT created a necromantic ritual that could halt a Naga's resurrection by transforming the living Naga into a skeletal undead servitor. A Bone Naga retains only a few of its spells known in life. So now they've thrown away the fact that they're created from Dark Nagas and just saying that the UNT create Bone Nagas. Alright, interesting. I see the story there. The Guardian Nagas are wise and good. The beautiful Guardian Nagas protect sacred places and items of magical power from falling into evil hands. In their hidden redoubts, they research spells and hatch convoluted plots to thwart evil designs of their enemies. A Guardian Naga doesn't seek out violence, warning off intruders rather than attacking. Only if the foes persist does the Naga attack, accosting enemies with its spells and poisonous spittle. And finally, the Spirit Naga lives in gloom and spitefulness, constantly plotting vengeance against creatures that have wronged them or that they believe has wronged them. Lairing in dismal caverns and ruins, they devote their time to developing new spells and enslaving the mortals with which they surround themselves with. A Spirit Naga likes to charm its foes, drawing them close so it can sink its poisonous fangs into their flesh. Okay, so now we've gone over the Naga as a whole. Now let's go over the stat blocks in the 5e monster manual, as well as a homebrew Naga I've made for you guys. Starting with the Bone Naga. It has an AC of 15 and 58 hit points and a speed of 30 feet. And it is immune to poison, as well as being charmed, exhausted, paralyzed, and poisoned. They also have a spellcasting ability of a level 5 spellcaster, and it says they need only verbal components to cast its spells. And if the Naga was a Guardian Naga in life, its spellcasting ability is Wisdom, and it has the following cleric spells prepared. It has Mending, Sacred Flame, and Thaumaturgy at will. First level, it has Command, Shield of Faith. At second level, it has Calm Emotions and Hold Person. And at third level, it has Bestow Curse. But if the Naga was a Spirit Naga in life, the spellcasting ability is Intelligence and has the following wizard spells prepared. It has Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Ray of Frost at will. At first level, it has Charm Person, Sleep. At second level, it has Detect Thoughts and Hold Person. And at third level, it has Lightning Bolt. And now for its actions, it only does get one bite attack with a +5 to hit and a range of 10 feet and deals 2d6 plus 3 piercing damage and an additional 3d6 poison damage. Next we have the Spirit Naga with an AC of 15 and 75 hit points and a speed of 40 feet. This Naga has an immunity to poison as well as being charmed and poisoned, and gets an ability called Rejuvenation, where if it dies, the Naga returns to life in 1d6 days and regains all its hit points, and only a wish spell can prevent this trait from functioning. So essentially the UNT used a wish spell to create Bone Nagas. It also gets a spellcasting pool of a level 10 spellcaster and can cast the following spells with a spell save DC of 14 with a +6 to hit. Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Ray of Frost at will. At first level it can cast Charm Person, Detect Magic, and Sleep. Second level it can cast Detect Thoughts, Hold Person. At third level it can cast Lightning Bolt and Water Breathing. Fourth level it can cast Blight and Dimension Door. And at fifth level it can cast Dominate Person. And for its actions, it gets a bite attack with a +7 to hit and a reach of 10 feet and deals 1d6 plus 4 piercing damage. And the target must make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw or take an additional 7d8 poison damage on a failed save, or half of that on a success. And finally, we have the Guardian Naga. It has an AC of 18 and 127 hit points and a speed of 40 feet. It has the same immunities as the Spirit Naga and a challenge rating of 10, which is the same as an Aboleth. I am actually surprised we haven't really done a video on Aboleth yet. Maybe I'll do that next. It has the same rejuvenation ability of the Spirit Naga, but this one has a spell save DC of 16 and a +8 to hit, and it can cast the following spells. It can cast Mending, Sacred Flame, and Thaumaturgy at will. First level, it can cast Command, Cure Wounds, and Shield of Faith. Second level, it can cast Calm Emotions and Hold Person. Third level, it can cast Bestow Curse, Clairvoyance. At fourth level, it can cast Banishment and Freedom of Movement. At 5th level, it can cast Flame Strike and Gaius, and at 6th level, it can cast True Seeing. For its actions, it has a bite attack with a +8 to hit and a reach of 10 feet and deals 1d8 plus 4 piercing damage, and if the target fails a DC 15 con save, it takes an additional 10d8 poison damage. And finally, it has an action called Spit Poison, where it again has a +8 to hit and has a range of 15 to 30 feet. The target must make a DC 15 con save or take 10d8 poison damage on a failed save or half as much on a success. Now for the homebrew stat block I've made. I've made a Naga where a blood cult believes the best way to acquire knowledge is through the consumption of blood itself, creating twisted Nagas that feast on the blood of their victims to acquire their memories and secrets. The Sanguine Naga has an AC of 17 and 135 hit points with a speed of 40 feet, but I've also given it a swim speed of 30 feet, where I feel like it swims like a water snake, similar as the Colossal Naga, which I kind of love that. I gave it a resistance to necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, as well as an immunity to being charmed and frightened. I made an ability for it called Blood Sense, where the Naga can sense the presence of any creature within 60 feet of it that has blood. I gave it a fun ability called Crimson Communion that recharges on a 5 or 6, where as a bonus action, the Naga can taste a drop from a creature's blood through a wound vial or a Tanakh, and it immediately learns one of the following things about the creature. It could learn a major secret from its past, a vivid emotional memory, or its greatest desire or fear. I added this in purely for roleplay purposes, for when you're fighting a Sanguine Naga. If used on a spellcaster, the Naga also learns one spell they know and have prepared, and can cast it once within the next 24 hours using its own spell slots. It has an innate spellcasting of Charisma with a DC of 16 and a +8 to hit, and can cast the following spells. It can cast Detect Thoughts, Inflict Wounds, and Command at will. 3 times a day it can cast Vampiric Touch, Dominate Person, Bestow Curse, and Suggestion. And once a day it can cast Greater Restoration, Contagion, or Modify Memory. For its actions, I give it an action called Bloodletting Bite, where it has a +8 to hit and has a reach of 10 feet and deals 2d8 +4 piercing damage and 4d6 necrotic damage. Target must succeed on a DC 16 con save or bleed profusely, taking an additional 3d6 necrotic damage at the start of its next turn. And the final action it has is Hemorrhage Wave, where the Naga emits a pulse of blood magic in a 20-foot radius, and each creature with blood in the area must make a DC con save or take 68 necrotic damage and be slowed until the end of their next turn. The Naga then also regains hit points equal to half the total damage dealt. I feel like Nagas as a whole are horrific and gruesome creatures and have so much potential in any D&D game. You could have a game where the party explores a ruined temple and they hear faint whispers echoing through the halls. The whispers guide them deeper in until they find a massive stone sarcophagus split open from inside, whereas Naga was once a guardian priest who turned on her worshippers in a bid for immortality. Well, that is all I have for you guys today on the Naga. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found this video helpful, and if there's anything I missed, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. What monster do you think I should cover next? Let me know in the comments and I'll add that comment at the end of that video. Like I said at the beginning, if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and a cheeky sub if you haven't. It helps a lot more than you realize. I want to thank you all again, and I will see you all in the next video.